It's Thursday night, and you know what time that is? It is time for the Author's Dilemma show, and I'm one of your hosts, J.E. Jack. I write paranormal thrillers and urban fantasies.
I'm Hyrum Hawks. I write, what do I write? Hard sci-fi and sci-fantasy.
And I'm Jennifer Carr, and I write Christian suspense as well as clean contemporary romance.
You know, it's funny, after this is our seventh show, by the way, but it's funny, after all this time, you would think that just introducing ourselves or introducing myself, like, I know what I write, but every time I say introduce myself and then have to go to the next part, I'm like, what do I write?
What's my name? Yeah.
Who am
Well,
I?
it might change.
Was that it might change. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time where I did write a little bit of fantasy, and I might do that still.
What is paranormal fiction but a kind of fantasy?
That's true.
We're all living in a fantasy, right?
Mhm.
All
I
right.
mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least anyway. All right. So first off, I just want to welcome everybody back. For this episode, I think tonight's going to be a really good episode. I got to get away from saying, hey, this is going to be an awesome episode, because if I keep on saying that, well, it kind of takes away from it. So tonight's going to be a great
It will be mediocre.
Yeah.
It's going to be a treasure trove of information.
A treasure trove, because that's what, anyway. If you're here with us tonight, hey, I just want to say thank you for spending your time with us. If you want to pop in the comments and let us know where you're watching from, or if you have any comments or questions that you'd like to throw at us while we're here live, please use the comments. And if you're listening to us in the future, use our email, and you can contact us and ask us a question, and we will try to answer as best as possible. So tonight we thought it best to go over the actual process of getting your books out to people, right? So you spent all this time writing this book, and you went through the editing, you went through the formatting, you went through getting a book cover, and now it's time to get it out into the world. And there's so many options out there that it can be quite confusing. And there's a lot of pathways to get there. And there's some dangerous pathways to go down as well. So tonight we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about our processes, about the different programs that we use to get our books into the hands of our readers. And like I said, if you have a question, be sure to, do we have a comment? I think we do.
We do.
Lewis Edmore, excuse me. I am sorry. It's been a long day, and I can't read. Yes. Lewis Edmund Wetmore. The thought I would make money by writing is apparently the fantasy component of my writing.
That's me.
So I've known Lewis for quite a while online, and he's a character. He actually writes, and he has a lot of great ideas. So,
well, before you jump into programs, you said something interesting. You said dangerous.
Right.
There's the two types of danger I see. First, selling your soul in order to be able to make things work. You don't have to do that. We're all teaming up. But the other is, the biggest one is just wasting your money. I know we're going to dive into that.
Well, real quick, because we forgot our weekly updates.
Oh, yes, we did.
Yes. So now is the time on our show where we talk about our updates real quick before we get to the meat and potatoes of the show. So, Hiram, tell us about your business. How did you do last week? What'd you learn? Where you got?
I went to LTUE last week and got to meet people at the Life, the Universe, and Everything convention, sci-fi and fantasy convention. It's in Provo, Utah. It was underwhelming in some ways. I don't think I'd sell there again, but it was an amazing networking opportunity. I got to meet some awesome authors, including someone in one of my writers groups that I'd never met in person.
Oh, that's so cool.
I also met Robert Zanghini, who is awesome. He and his father co-author and make a full-time living at it. You meet awesome people. I said the word awesome too many times. That's pretty much all I did. And then I keep coming up with things I want to do to revise existing stories. So that's the danger of having time to think.
Mm-hmm. Well, after every show like that, or every convention that you go to, you always come back with excitement, and I think people, that's where you grow, right? I mean, you go to these things, and then you grow in between, and then you go to the next one, and it kind of keeps you going. And and then when you surround yourself by other people that are doing the same stuff that you're doing, you're like, oh, I'm not such the oddball after all. And you keep on going. Jen, how are things with you?
It's been a week around here. We've
Mhm.
all in my family shared a head cold or a virus of some sort, and for whatever reason, it's held on to me the longest. But that has also made me sit still a lot longer. And so today, I hit my project goal word count and have gone over it, and I'm still not quite done. But by tomorrow, I will have the draft of this manuscript finished, and I am so excited.
Congrats.
Thanks.
For me, I finally got my website done. It's not great, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was. So if anybody ever wants to check that out, it's just www.jejack.com. And so, yeah, so I changed from Bluehost to Weebly, and it's such a better. So Bluehost was hosting it, and I think I was using WordPress, and for me, WordPress was just difficult. Going in, and maybe it was just because of the familiarity of it. I'm not sure, but going to Weebly, their website building was just
It's easy.
it's easy. I mean, it's just drag and drop, and there you go. I ordered a box of books, so they should be here probably next week sometime, and then I will probably set up my online store at some point in the future so I can sell directly autographs, for those that like that stuff. So I'm excited about that. I've been listening to a ton of self-publishing podcast or self-publishing formula podcast, which they've changed their name to Learn Self-Publishing. There's a lot going there. Great podcast, and that's kind of got my energy going because I got to start changing some things in my own business. So anyway, those are some really good resources to look at. All right, so we talked about our business. Now we come to the fun part of our show. We talk about how we do this business, and so I guess to start off, we got to start off like after you get your book, you can do it a couple different ways, right? So some of us go to Amazon. And you can get so when you publish, you have to use an ISBN number, and that stands for. I would do research before I came here, but I just got busy today.
I'll tell you, it stands for
magical number.
International Standard Book Number.
Yes, and so that's how they find your books. Like that's how you go to Barnes and Noble, or if you go to brick and mortar store, and you need to find a book. Well, you give them that number, and they can punch it into the old search system, and they will come back with that book you're searching for and the edition. They can be quite expensive. If you get one, does anybody off the hand know how much that is?
It's like $50 last I checked.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite steep. So if you buy in bulk,
it's 10 for 300.
Yeah, it's expensive. But if you buy 600, or if you buy 100, I think it's like 600.
Yeah.
So if you buy in bulk, the more you get, the cheaper it is. And if you're going to be around for a while, and you're going to write more than one book, or write a series, I would suggest getting that 100. Because not only do you need an ISBN for your paperback, but if you get a hardback, well, you need an ISBN for that. If you get an audiobook or an ebook or different versions of it, you have to have an ISBN for each edition of it. I'm sorry, Hyrum, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Let's put an asterisk on all this, because two asterisks really. First, the only source for you to buy these, if you're in the U.S., is Bowker.
Yeah.
It's a monopoly. We won't go into the details of why, or there's people that want to change it. That's a totally different conversation. But it is the only legitimate source. Don't buy an ISBN anywhere else if you're in the U.S. There are legitimate sources in each country. You got to find your countries. We don't know all. We couldn't possibly look up all the countries. But if you're in the U.S., which the majority of our listeners are likely to be, use Bowker. Now, the other asterisk is there are places that if you go exclusive, will give you their own ISBN,
right?
Like Amazon. If you are exclusive to Amazon, then they give you an ISBN. You do not get to take that ISBN when you leave. If you want to go wide at that point, you're out of luck. You're going to have to get a new ISBN. You start over. So it is not free. It is sort of free.
Yeah. Right. And the pros and cons of the free versus, I mean, Jen, do you have anything to add to that? Okay, yeah. So the pros and cons of having free versus having your own ISBN is, like you said, uh, the reason why I wanted to have ISBNs for everything in my own is because if I ever wanted to pull it off a platform, or if the platform changed, let's say tomorrow Amazon does some crazy, I'm not saying they are, but let's say they come out with some weird, code of conduct or standards or privacy, whatever, they change the way they do things and it's just not very good, and I want to pull my books off. Well, now I have, if I went strictly with them, then I'd have multiple products of the same book, right? Whereas if it's my ISBN, that's mine. And so there's a lot of confusion too. So, or not confusion, but if there's more than one ISBN for the same book, it'd be kind of like, okay, well, which version is it? I just kind of wanted to avoid that totally when I started. So that's number one. So next, I guess we could talk about the platforms that we sell it on, right? So, Hiram, are you only on Amazon, or
No,
how are you set up?
I'm on Amazon and Ingram Spark. Actually, when I go to my website, I know the full list. There are places you can go that are all tied to Ingram Spark. There are also places that are on Kobo, Kobo. Kobo is kind of your generic worldwide distributor. It'll put it up on places like Smashwords, Vivlio, Scribd, Palace Marketplace, a lot of places. You can put your book up on it. They will also send to then you got Ingram Spark that sends to Barnes & Noble. You can put your book up on Apple and Google.
Real quick,
And
are you talking about your ebook or your paperback?
most of those are ebook, but
okay.
Ingram Spark will distribute to some of those others.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on your country. But if you want international, you've got to go Kobo and Ingram Spark, and for the other parts of the world. Yeah. So I wanted my book to be available more places simply because I had reasons. But if I was just trying to make money, I would probably stick to just Amazon, or at least for the ebook,
right?
And just do distribution with Ingram Spark and Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, not just the money aspect, but just the ease of it, and then also just the difference of and we'll talk about that here in a second. Jen, what do you do? What do you do?
What do I do? Depends on the day. No, I have I started, and this is where I have stayed really, Amazon, and I'm also KDP, which means that my book is available on Kindle Unlimited, and I'm also Ingram Spark. And then I also hold stock of my books so that I can sell from my website.
And that's kind of where I'm at as well. I went with Amazon exclusive because if you go exclusive, you get more royalty. And then if you go with Kindle Unlimited, you get paid by the page read. And it's not much, but like half a cent a page. But if you have, like a 300 word or a 300 page book or whatever, I mean, that does add up over time. And then the only thing I like about Kindle Unlimited is the fact that people that subscribe to that, they can read my book for free. And me being a newish author that may not know so instead of them paying $9 or $5 or $4 for the ebook, or $9 or $10 or $12 for the paperback, they can read my book for free, give me a rating, hopefully. And if they like my writing, they will go to the next book and the next book and the next book. So I'll get paid on the read through on that. So, and then also
it's a test run.
Right. It's a test run. And then also as it builds more social backing as far as the ratings and the reviews, well, then that will pay dividends on people that aren't in Kindle Unlimited, because when they go to that Amazon page, they see so many ratings or whatever or reviews, they'll be like, oh, okay. And that was my thinking of staying Kindle Unlimited. Now on the wide aspect, yes, I have Ingram Sparks, and I make sure that that way it goes to all of them, like Barnes and Noble, Google, and things of that nature. But that's only paperback, because you if you're exclusive with your ebook to Amazon and they discover your book elsewhere, you will get penalized. So that's why.
And that's part of the difficulty. this is another one of those big asterisks we need to share. Amazon will sometimes punish you for things you did not do.
That's true.
They will punish. There are many reports of people losing their Amazon career because people pirate their books, put it up elsewhere, and then Amazon says you're no longer exclusive, and so we're taking all of your money and we're shutting you down, and you can't sell with us anymore. They lose their royalties, they lose everything.
Right.
And then they were exclusive, so they have no way of selling their book. They lose their entire livelihood. That's the kind of danger you're in because Amazon is a giant faceless corporation that doesn't have any mercy. That's not inherent. That's an inherent feature of a giant corporation. They don't think. Bureaucracies. So you're facing that as a risk. And that's a calculated risk that I'm not going to take myself. But I'm also in a position where I don't need the money immediately, so I try to go wide from the beginning. That doesn't mean it works if you don't market,
right?
But that's a separate issue. So you've got to weigh the pros and cons on all of those.
Well, right, and honestly, that's another reason why you want to build your email list too, as far as like marketing, because you never know. I mean, heck, Facebook could change tomorrow, and none of us will be here.
Right.
I mean, on Facebook anyway. And so, you always got to look at how to build your business beyond one. I mean, you don't want to be a one-legged stool, right? Because if that leg gets knocked out, well, then you're off. But if you can. And that's the thing, and that's the reason why I started off the way I started with Amazon, because eventually I do plan on going wide. But until then, or maybe traditional, who knows? But right now I'm building the readership that in my thinking, building the readership first, and then I'm going to look at that later. Jen, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
I will say that there is a way to integrate paperback selling via Amazon and Ingram Spark without conflict of interest. Like you can. You can do both, but there is a specific way you have to set it up. And I won't go into the whole process, but you can find my video about it on TikTok, which is at Carr Writes. There it is. It was there somewhere. And I have a pinned video that tells you exactly the step-by-step process of getting your book on both Ingram Spark and Amazon without messing things up.
Yeah, it's all about exclusivity, right? I think in Ingram Sparks, there's a thing that, or is it in Amazon where you don't? Oh, in Amazon you don't want it to go exclude, or you want it to be exclusive to Amazon and not what's the word? Starts with an E, or where you're out beyond Amazon. I don't know.
Yeah,
that word that we do not speak of.
Today is not that day.
No, today is not that day. Okay. Now, also something else that I do once you get past your paperback and your Kindle or your ebook, excuse me, is sometimes you can also get into audiobooks, and there's, oh my gosh, there's a ton of that process out there. And Amazon also has a program called ACX, or they own ACX, ACX.com, and ACX owns Audible. And so for new authors, I mean, it's quite easy to get your book up into the audiobook land for free, actually. And
if you spend money,
no,
as in if you spend the money to get someone to read it or your time.
No, you don't.
Not on ACX.
Okay, I missed.
So on ACX they have a way that you can share profits with royalty share with your narrator. And so the nice thing about ACX is it's kind of a marketplace where narrators and authors can come together, and authors can put out an audition call or an all call for your, this book. And so people will put in auditions for it, and you listen and you pick the best one. And now they also have royalty share plus pay, or they have straight pay. So like if I paid for a narrator right off the bat, that's going to be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. Well, $50 an hour. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Anywhere from $50 an hour to $200 an hour, depending on their skill level or how good they are. However, there's a lot of kind of like we're new authors. There's new people trying to spread their wings, and they'll do it for free, and they're banking on the royalty share aspect of it. So the unfortunate thing about Amazon, and there's a big big discussion on that, and we won't get into that here. But since they own it, you don't get very much as far as a percentage for the royalty, because if you're exclusive with Audible, you'll get 40%. However, if you royalty share, you're going to get 20%. And you also can't put a price tag on your own product. They already have their automatic price tag on it, depending on how long it is, because Audible has a subscription, and it's all kind of set up how they do things, and it's above my pay grade and my knowledge. So, but it's a good resource to get your books out there. Like I said, there are some caveats to it. There are other options. I don't know those other options, so I can't speak from experience on that. But the reason why I like royalty share is because it's free. It takes. Now, the downside of it is you have to go through the files. You have to find the person to do it. You have to go through make sure it's all good. But the nice thing about it is now it's just not you marketing it. It's the narrators hopefully marketing it on their end as well. So it brings more eyes to your book. So that's at least what I've learned.
So, something I've learned recently about audiobooks too, and this is very controversial. You're going to have to decide for yourself. We won't argue it, because if you want to have fun, just post anything for or against AI in a writer's forum. And
Yeah.
I posted something, and it led to 200 different comments of both pros and cons. But so leaving this, neither promoting it nor demoting it, it's what's happening. Kindle, both Kindle and Google are actively promoting to authors the option of having your book read by their machine voices. That's the word that Google uses, is machine reader. That is just AI. It is very good. I tested it today on Google. It does sound better than it's ever sounded. It is not as good as a reader. It's not going to do accents, but it is pretty impressive. The author would have to literally go through and be like, no, that is not how you pronounce that name, and you have to tweak it. But you can. So it's a pretty advanced system. So as a writer, that is an option to you. Google Play is trying to make a play on the whole system.
And the same thing with ACX as well. They're doing the same thing. And I looked at it briefly. It is interesting. But, the thing is like, yeah, and I've seen pros and cons, right? I've read and here again, we're kind of getting into the weeds on this, but I saw some pros, like, there was one reader that was blind, and that's how they read books. And so in some ways it's kind of nice because you can get your book out there rather quickly, because I'll tell you, going back and forth with a narrator, sometimes that takes weeks. Whereas, this, you just pop it in there and then you kind of review the files almost immediately.
Took me an hour.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, more is better than a month. But that's, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it quite yet. I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those.
I don't want to, because for me it's twofold. I have objections, but also I want my book to sound like it's in my head, like it is in my head.
Right.
I hear the accents, and eventually it's going to get to the point where you could like highlight, this is spoken in an Irish accent, this part's spoken in a British accent. And that's not today.
Well, I think the weirdest thing that happened to me, and I'm sorry to cut you off, the weirdest thing that happened to me was one of my readers reached out to me and they're like, "Oh, I just listened to your book listened to your book," and I'm like, "It was great. It was the one that was just released." And I'm like, "I didn't put that on Audible. How'd you do that?" And they had Alexa or Siri read it for them, and I'm like, "Well, I guess there's workarounds, and I'd rather." I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a moral thing. I mean, that's going to be a compass on, how do you feel about it? I mean, the same thing with writing books, right? I mean, like, there's people that use AI to write their books, and, and there's actually courses out there that teach people how to do this. And so it comes back to, what kind of person do you want to be? And, for good or bad, right? And here again, now we're getting into, this is another podcast conversation.
But it is part of the conversation, how to put your book out Those
It
are
is.
options. They're
Right.
not necessarily good or bad, depending on your perspective. They may have a moral aspect, but they are there. So,
Yeah.
I'm using a little free reader on Google or on Android called Read Era that is really easy for I can put an EPUB into it and just listen to it. It's not a very good reader, but it's good enough that I can put my ARC books, because I cannot possibly read all the ARC books that I have to do with all the authors I'm swapping books with. And so I listen to it and I get through it, and then, I get it done. So there's options. It's going to happen. It's going to happen where you're going to have a paper copy, and you're going to be wearing your stupid whatever, and it's going to read it to you.
Apple Pro.
Yeah, you're just going to flip pages, and it's going to read to you, and you're just going to be like sitting there vegetating. So it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we might as well.
It's a brave new world.
Put it in another podcast.
Oh.
And as my Gen X wife would say, this is how you get Terminator.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, that's true. Now, but however, and the reason why we wanted to talk about the actual process of getting your books out there is because there are some dangerous paths that people can find themselves walking down, and one of them, vanity presses.
Solomon warned.
And then, I mean, even some publishers, like, I would say that, okay, so, they have like small house, small clearinghouse, or small, I can't even talk, good Lord. They have, small publishers that prey on new authors. Like, hey, give us your book.
A big one.
Okay.
Amazon Publishing Services is not anything to do with Amazon.
Right.
I see that in comments almost every day on writers forums. Like, is Amazon Publishing Services legitimate? No, it's not.
It's funny that you even say that, is because this last week, this person tagged me in someone else's post because someone was asking, hey, how do I get a book out there? And they actually referenced that. And I'm like, oh, no. You can do that all yourself and save you all that royalty that you would keep yourself. So, and that's basically it. So what are vanity publishing? For those that don't know, it's basically, those are publishers that prey on you paying for everything first, right? They pay, you're going to pay for all the printing, you're going to pay for, and so they make you think that you're going traditional when you're not. So if you're going to go traditional, and here again, I am not traditional. I'm probably, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do know that you can submit your books to publishers, preferably through an agent, because if you go through an agent, hopefully they know a lot of people, or they are connected, and they can get your book in front of the right kind of publishers. Obviously the agent takes a cut, but you'll have, kind of goes back to that whole theory of it's better to make 10% of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. I always like that analogy, but
that's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's true though. It's like, okay, well, it makes sense. Whereas a vanity publisher, they expect, so if you go that route, you're not going to pay for anything. In fact, they're going to pay you for everything. Now you won't have control of your book cover. You won't, you'll have to deal with the editor, and they'll come back. With a vanity press, they're not going to do any of that. They're just going to take your money, and you might get some books on hand, but you're going to have books on hand, and you're not going to have a way to sell it. So you got to be careful. And then also, like Hyrum was saying with the Amazon Publishing Services, yeah, they'll do everything for you to get your book onto the platform, but that's pretty much the extent of what they're going to do, in my opinion. Now, I haven't worked with them, but that's what
everything I've heard. That's exactly it. They are pretending to. They're literally pretending to be Amazon. They are pretending to be a branch of KDP. And so they are more than just your traditional scam. And so, if in all honesty, if in doubt, it's probably a scam. And if it sounds too good to be true, it is a scam. The no such thing as a free lunch is more true today than it even was back in the day. I mean, you cannot, do not trust. Oh, and vanity publishers will not reach out to you, or real publishers will not reach out to you through your DMs.
Yeah.
And they are not from Nigeria.
Yeah.
I know some lovely Nigerians. I've been to Nigeria.
Yeah.
They're not, they don't reach out through your DMs. and talk about how they've read your unreleased book, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and you should be published. That's also
Which, by the way, kdp.amazon.com is the website that you go to start the process of getting your books on there.
yes, that is where the tears begin. I mean,
there's no reason though to pay somebody to publish you to Amazon when they make it as easy as it could possibly be to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Another thing about hybrid versus traditional versus hybrid and all of that. Vanity presses are going, you're paying for their name is what you're paying for. You're paying to say I'm published by so-and-so. And so you do put all the money up front. Hybrid publishing is simply, it's traditional publishing with some self-publishing benefits. And I have a connection to a couple of hybrid publishers, which I'll be glad to, if anybody wants names, I can share them later. But they will help you with the editing. They will help you with the book design. They will, they're going to do all these things. You still get a say in what's being done. You may have to pay a small fee up front to help them pay the people doing the work, but it's not going to be the same thing as a vanity press in that they're going to market your book after the fact as well. And so you have to be careful which hybrid press you use, but there are some good ones out there who will back you in ways that a vanity press won't. And it will give you the control that a traditional press won't. Now, with small traditional publishing, you can get a deal where you don't pay anything at all upfront, and they will give you a small budget for marketing and that kind of thing. And you can, or a small budget in general that you can help decide where to spend it, whether it's on marketing or something like that. But you still won't have anything out of pocket. You will. It's kind of like insurance. You have to meet a deductible before you start getting paid by it, though. So they all have their pros and cons, but vanity press is like it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Like that's the biggest walking red flag you'll possibly find in publishing, in my opinion.
The hybrid publishers don't give the vibe of too good to be true, or of we know best. You shouldn't. You should just give us the money. And we'll
right.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know how your business is being run, you should probably walk away from it. I mean, because there's a lot of people I've come across where they've told me some things. I'm just like, I don't think I would do that. But
to each their own. Sometimes you have to learn those lessons the hard way, and I hate it for you, but we're here to help.
And this is where it's really important to be honest with yourself and where you're at in your journey, your business journey as well. Because, if you're blind and you make sure because sometimes we don't want to know the truth, right? Sometimes we get into situations and heaven forbid, I don't want to be told the truth because I'm here now. And if I'm told the truth, well, then that's going to just make me feel bad. But if we're honest and we, are honest about where we are and where we want to go, well, you're halfway there then, because then you'll take the steps to get to where you're going. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. And that's about all
good.
I got.
No, that's good though. And you can't be in it to make a quick dollar. You can't,
no.
Those people who promise you to take you from 0 to 60 in no time flat, like they're just in it to take your money and run. Like they're not going to sit there and handhold you and walk you through the process. And if you want to self-publish your book, there are podcasts like there's one called The Author's Dilemma that those hosts are pretty useful and helpful and are glad
they're a little
to
sarcastic though.
Sometimes, and they're very humble, but they also would be glad to help you walk through those steps as necessary.
We don't bite. Now,
okay.
Another podcast there is one other semi-traditional publishing route that we have not even discussed. That is subscription. We can do. I think that we should get an expert on that and do a whole podcast on it, because things like Ream, Vella, Wattpad, there's so many, and we should definitely. I think there are people that would benefit, especially romance authors.
Well, heck, there's that. Then there's also Kickstarter where you can do projects and things like that, which that's beyond me. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention Kickstarter when you were talking about audiobooks. That's my next goal, is to kickstart audiobook funding. Like just kickstart the heck out of funding an audiobook narrator, because they are expensive for the good ones, for the really good ones that you don't want to listen to at 3x speed because you can't stand their voice. Because I will do that. Like, the narrator will make it or break it for me on an audiobook. And so like, I'm willing to cash out, and be like, here, take my money, but I got to kickstart the fund first. So,
well, going back to audiobooks, the nice thing, I mean, I honestly, if I had the money, then yeah, I would totally do that. Because if you have your own files, then you can upload them where you want them and not be beholden to one company that may change their their operating standards tomorrow and totally, like, I mean, heck, there's a big thing going on around now lately around Spotify changing their what's it called?
their terms of service.
Terms of service.
I think they pulled that down, didn't they?
They reverted it immediately once they got found out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like there was a miscommunication somewhere, and they got overzealous.
They were.
You're more generous than I am.
Yeah, well, our podcast is on Spotify, so I like Spotify quite a bit.
Me too.
Tell you the truth, I do like Spotify quite a bit. No, all jokes aside, not only am I a member, but I'm a subscriber too. No, I really like Spotify because they do make it easy on music and other things. And no, we're not getting paid for that. So,
nope. But you can find our podcast on Spotify.
Yes, you can. So I think we've pretty much covered all the good. Is there anything that you can think of?
I think we beat all the dead horses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if ever there's something that we've just kind of glossed over, it's not because we don't want to talk about it. It's because we're not sure if it's going to be useful for you. So by all means, send us an email or leave a comment on when you see our video come on your Facebook or whatever and say, hey, what were you talking about? And somebody's going to reach out to you and let you know what we were talking about.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, and like I said, if you have any questions on this or anything else, be sure to, pop in the comments at the next live show or email us at authorsdilemma@gmail.com. We are more than happy to respond and try to give you the best advice, or at least point you in the right direction, or connect you up with a person that can help you the best. That's our mission here. Our mission is to, network and to build a group of people that can help each other out. Because we, it's a lonely journey and it doesn't have to be. So I guess that's it. I appreciate your time spending it with us. Next week it'll be another awesome show. Once we figure out what we're going to talk about. But anyway, everybody have a great week. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.